We're waiting for three.
We are ready to go. We are live. It's W. No, it's not W anything. Bradley J and the J-Cast. You caught me unawares, everybody, because I was sneezing just before we went live. We're with Allan Dines, who has a book.
You do.
Front row center, and it's about getting access and photographing and recording the stars he had access to, and we'll get to that. So, Allan, thank you for being with us. If you want to look up this book on Amazon or whatever, it's ALLANDINES, forward by Carter Allen, which is a big thing. That's great.
Good friend.
I'm going to start backwards. You know, usually I take the chronological approach, but not this time. I'm going to ask you, Allan, what's the most intense shoot you had, and regarding the photos in the book? Which of these photos has the best, most intense story behind it? Maybe it was a tough shot to get. Maybe there's some problem associated with the photo. Tell me the story.
There's always problems. I would have to say one of my favorite stories is the one that happened at Mamakin, and that's also why you have Billy Idol back here, because that is one of my favorite shots as well. It was a crazy night. Dan Aykroyd was there because he was in town shooting a movie. Robert Plant was in town, and then Steven Tyler and Joe Perry and Tom Hamilton all showed up in Mamakin because they were called the Neurotic Outsiders. I think that was the name. That included Billy Idol and Duff McKagan, Matt Sorum. Trying to remember some of the other names, but everybody was in Mamakin that night, and you literally could not turn left or right without hitting a celebrity.
What time period was this?
This would have been 95 at Mamakin.
Okay.
And what made it intense, though, is that I was told prior to shooting by one of the managers, for whatever reason, and I do go through this in the book, not to take the lens cap off my camera and to keep everything turned off. I had no idea why, but they're paying the bill, so that's what I did.
So all night or until a certain point?
Until they said to me it was okay to shoot. But prior to that happening, I'm standing in the club. We're all waiting for the bands to show up, and I see Robert Plant coming from the left, and I see Steven Tyler coming from the right, and I'm still not told that I can shoot. And as I say, I can see the shot about to happen within seconds in front of me. And I've still not been given the all clear to turn on my gear and take the lens cap off, which I probably should have done anyways because I know better. And sure enough, the two of them come together right in front of me. Tyler puts his arm around him, turns them around, says, "Take a shot." There's no way I'm getting a shot. I start fumbling with my equipment. Tyler looks at me and goes, "Real pro."
Oh, no. What a great story.
It was awesome.
Wow. And so you did not get the shot.
I didn't get that shot that I wanted. I got others of them, and then the rest of the night was just amazing. But yeah, it was a tough start to the night for sure.
So is that the most regrettable moment? Is that the big shot that got away? Were there any other bigger ones that bigger than that got away? I mean, that was who'd you say, Plant and Tyler?
Plant and Tyler. No, I think that one is right at the top of my list.
Now, if you had to do it again, would you break the rules?
Oh, absolutely. In a heartbeat.
Yeah, man. Did other people break the rules? Did you see them with their lens caps off?
At that point, I was the only photographer in the club. This was at this point, this was still private. It was, this is prior to cell phones, so there are no cell phones up in the air taking pictures. This is all film.
1995. Okay, so to recap again, and we got the story right out of the gate quickly because the reason is people don't stick around to watch videos very long. So you got to give them something fun right away. And so that we did. That was a good story. And again, it's related to this book, Front Row Center, How I Met Everyone, by our guest, Allan Dines. All right. So interestingly, 95, this incident that you talk about, was only 3 years after you picked up a camera really for the first time. As I understand it, You got married in 1990. The honeymoon was in Santorini.
Santorini, Mykonos, Athens.
Wow. And you took a camera with you that you had also been given. It was a point and shoot Olympus. So you were
Correct.
not a photographer at that point. And somehow from 92 to 95, which is 3 short years, you went from zero to almost hero at Mama Kin. How did you get to that spot in only those 3 short years? That's the big story as far as I'm concerned. 3 years, you went from not even thinking about it to being, superstar rock photographer.
I would have to agree that it happened very fast. It certainly was not in my plans when I started taking pictures in Greece. And the way it started is, getting up early, and I always enjoyed sunrises. I enjoyed sunsets. I enjoyed being out late. And I was taking pictures from the minute I woke up till I went to sleep. And then when I came back,
and this is not digital. This is film.
Oh, no. This is all film. So I'm shooting roll after roll. I have no idea what I have. I just keep shooting it and putting it in a bag and waiting to go back home and see what I got.
And when did you decide, I'm going to take a picture of concerts, pictures at concerts?
That kind of evolved. I always enjoyed celebrity. We got the Globe at home. I'd read the Herald on the way into to work in Boston on the Red Line, and I always enjoyed the celebrity columns. There was, again, there's no internet, there's no phone. This is the way you get your information. This is the way you find out what's going on in the city, what celebrities may be coming, and I was interested. And one day I read that Norman Nathan, who was a gossip columnist, had died, and the American Cancer Society was having a benefit called the Eyeball at the Park Plaza Hotel, and pretty much everybody in radio was going to be there. Most of the people from TV, as well as another 500 top names of people in Boston, and it sounded exciting, and I had nothing to lose. And I made a call. I called the American Cancer Society. I had read that Norma's daughter, Sonia, was working there, and I actually got her on the phone. That's the way you made connections. There was no email. There was no text. So I actually got on the phone, and I basically said to her, look, I'm an amateur. I would love to shoot this event. I won't charge you anything. I just want to be there. And she said yes. And I said, I'll give you all my negatives, not the negatives, the prints. And she said yes. And that got me through the door.
Wow. And what year was that? What month and year?
That was 92. Eyeball, forget the exact month, but I know it's in the book. Too many days. Many days.
So a couple of years had passed since your first picking up the camera in Greece. And so it took 2 years for you to spool up your courage and even think of doing this. And you did, and you learned the lesson. You gotta go for it. You gotta go to the source. You just pick up and start asking and making it happen yourself.
Right. I also think, Bradley, that my age had a lot to do with it. I really do. And I've thought about this a lot. I was 30 at the time. I wasn't 20, 21, 22. I didn't look like a young photographer, even though I was. I didn't look like a scared photographer, even though I was that first time out. But I had nothing to lose. And I knew how to talk to people. And it just so happened that the people that were around me were my age or slightly older, and I felt that allowed me to talk to them in a different way than a kid would.
All right. The time factor is really crucial to me. It's so interested in my personal timeline. It seems like in the beginning, things happen really quickly, and as you get older, things space out. And I'm always fascinated by that, and it seems to be the case with you. I bet things picked up quickly after the Norman Nathan Eyeball. Right? You said, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm going to do this a lot." What happened next?
So at the Eyeball, I was approached by a woman named Barbara Brilliant, who was working at the Jewish Advocate doing their gossip column. And she said to me that evening, if I had a shot in Norm that looked really good, she'd run it in the paper. And I said, absolutely. And I had something, brought it in. She loved it. The editor loved it. And within a couple of weeks, I was shooting not only with Barbara, but the paper wasn't paying, and what they did pay was not a lot. And I had another job, so I was able to go out once in a while, but I started going out with Barbara, and then the paper asked me to shoot some stuff because it was election year, was 92, and Hillary came to town, and Bill Clinton came to town, and George Bush came to town in Air Force One. Those were all things that I shot for the paper that I never expected.
How soon after the Norm Nathan event was this? Right away?
Oh yeah, within weeks of that. Oh yeah,
Okay.
it happened really fast. I was lucky.
You started out with the Olympus. At what point did you get a better camera, and how did you learn how to use it all?
I got the new camera when I went through my dad's equipment and said, "I'm taking this."
And when was that?
That was right at the beginning. At that point, I had already done that.
So right after you got back from Greece, you said, "I'm going to use a better camera," and you took your dad's.
In the 2 years from the Olympus, I studied magazines and I learned how to shoot better, and I read about flash and things like that. And as I needed better equipment, I went through his bags and grabbed a Nikon.
Wow! So he was a photographer. Obviously.
He was, yeah, a very good amateur. Actually, he used to shoot a Hasselblad, which is a medium format, beautiful camera and fabulous images.
My father was an amateur photographer too, and he always would pine over wanting a Hasselblad.
That was the camera.
He had a Yashica D. I don't know if you remember that, but it was pretty, I think, medium format, right? You looked through a viewfinder in the top and it shot out. And my job was to hold the hot bulbs after he'd taken something. He'd switch the bulbs and I'd be, ow, these bulbs are hot.
I remember those.
All right. So continue with your story. You got to George in weeks. You're shooting famous people, politicians and things. And why don't you unroll your story from there?
So what was really cool about the Jewish Advocate was that my editor, Bob Israel, basically gave me freedom to shoot whatever I wanted as long as I got what he needed. So I got a card with my name on it and said the Jewish Advocate. I wasn't on staff, but pretty much if I saw something of interest, I would say, can I use the name to go out and do that? And he said yes. So I started doing that. And one of them was, it was called Fall Fest at the time. It then became Mix Fest and God knows what else. But Woody Harrelson from Cheers sang at that performed at that event. Wilson Phillips was there, and that really was the very first time I shot music, and man, that was fun.
You were big on the Kiss concerts, right?
For a long time.
Being a BCN guy, it never even occurred to me that anybody was, anything else was going on. That's kind of sad. But this radio station, Kiss, is having these big parties with superstars there, and I'm pretty ignorant about who was there. Why don't you give me a rundown of some of the famous people you shot at these Kiss concerts?
Well, anybody from Boston that's heard about Kiss knows that they have anywhere from 20 to 30 acts, sometimes more. Pretty much impossible to shoot all of them, but they had Britney Spears when she was 15 or 16, Christina Aguilera when she was about the same age. They've had Bon Jovi, they've had Gwen Stefani, no doubt, Shakira. Those are all the more contemporary, but they also had Elton John and Cher, Lionel Richie, and every event was just such a blast to shoot. So much fun.
You you developed a pretty good relationship with Peter Wolf, right?
Not a relationship. I just ended up photographing him all the time. He just kept popping up the way he does. A lot around the House of Blues. As a matter of fact, the first shot that I ever had in one of the two Boston papers, the Globe or the Herald, was after getting a call to get down to the House of Blues. This is when I had already started working with them. Peter Wolf was jumping up on stage with Jeff Golub and some of the members of Rod Stewart's band who had been in town playing. That was just fabulous. Getting a shot in the Herald was amazing.
Were you able to ever develop any personal relationship with any of these people? Any of these celebs? Mostly
not. I'd say the person that I had talked to numerous times also because of proximity was someone like Susan Tadeski. I photographed her numerous times when she was with Rounder and doing the local scene. And man, she just got huge. She's coming back again, I think, to the Orpheum in the next month or so too.
So we're speaking with Allan Dines. He's got a cool little book. It's called Front Row Center: How I Met Everyone. Did you really meet everyone, or is there anyone you wished you'd met?
Rolling Stones. I would like to photograph the Rolling Stones earlier in my career. That would have been a fun one. That was one of my favorite bands.
Did I see a picture of Paul McCartney in here?
Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr.
So I was watching a Beatles thing last night, and it struck me, I guess, again, and that there's no way you can say the Beatles are not the greatest rock band. This is not about the book. This is just an opinion. I know you love the Stones, and I have other friends that love the Stones, but just two guys talking. Well, I mean, the Stones did one thing. They just did one thing, and they did it pretty well. But the Beatles did many, many things, and they were kind of like the George Washington of rock. They kind of, I don't know, they set so many standards.
I understand what you're saying, but the fact is that I met one of the Beatles, and that, so that kind of covered me for that band. I've worked with the guys, just peripherally. I've met the guys from Boston, from the Cars, all the local bands, and so Stones are just one of them. Aerosmith, obviously, I've shot before. I've worked with them. I did a show at Monacan, which I got paid $1 for. That was really awesome.
Would you say this became your profession, or was it just a hobby? Did it always remain a hobby?
It's a profession. It's been a profession for 30 years, but it's been so much fun to do it. I've always said, if I have my camera in my hand, I don't care where I am.
So you made enough to make a living at it?
I made enough to get by. I credit my wife for giving me the freedom to be able to do what I really enjoyed. So maybe in that way, it is a hobby.
Your wife, Heidi, right?
Heidi is a tenured professor at UMass Worcester, and just a phenomenal support for me.
All this time, did you develop your own film? Because that had to be a factor. You'd have to shoot and then run home and go down the dark room, right?
I did, and I really enjoy that too. And you kind of have to embrace it for the number of hours that you're doing it. And again, I learned that from scratch. First darkroom was in my bathroom, and when I was working, it was not in use.
Did you really have any relations with radio stations? Did you become pals with the promotions people or people at some of the various Boston radio stations?
I would say that I did. I had a great relationship with Greater Media, with BOS, ROR, Magic. Also the country station. I mean, these people were just wonderful to work with. The marketing people, the DJs were always fabulous to me. And I'm around, making them look good if I can, and doing my best and making sure I get them with the celebrities that they're interested in. I am friends with some of them today. They've certainly reached out since the book has come out.
Who did you become friends with DJ wise?
Well, DJ wise, I have to say the biggest is the guy who did my forward, a really dear friend and amazing person, Carter Allen.
Yeah,
would be one.
Anybody else that you kind of got to know?
Chachi, also a very dear friend.
Chachi from WBCN, one of the big rock stations in the country.
And then somebody well, Jordan Rich.
Jordan Rich. Tell me about your relationship with Jordan Rich. How did you come to know him? Through kind of the Norma Nathan track?
Specifically, that's exactly how it happened. It's really wonderful that we're friends this many years later. I met him that first night at the Eyeball. He was one of the people that I photographed that I ended up knowing all these years. And I did work with him numerous times at other events as well, celebrity events, things of that nature. And I even sent people to do voice training with him.
Oh, wow. I should get some voice training. I actually never had it. I could probably use it. Can you do me a favor and share this with Jordan so he can see?
Absolutely.
That way he'll be able to see me saying, "Hey, Jordan, what's going on?"
Absolutely.
Okay. And I haven't really allowed you to run wild with stories. So we started out with a bang with the Steven Tyler, Robert Plant story. Give me a couple more cool stories. Oh, before we do that, and I know this is unprofessional to
go
jump
for
around like that. Be honest. Didn't
Yep.
you love, wasn't it wonderful for your ego to be able to show up at a club and get access? That's what it was all about for me. I loved having the access. You'd show
It's
up, other people in line, and they would go, "Oh, hey, Allan, you get to go backstage and hang out, right? Wasn't that cool? Admit it."
Anybody who says that it isn't is lying. It is fun. It's a blast. I mean, before I ever did anything, I always checked out the people wearing the passes, watching them walk up to the front row or backstage. The first time I'll go back from your last question. The first time I had a pass that meant anything was at the WZLX Bean, which lasted a couple of years, and to have free reign at the Hat Shell. Levon Helm and the band were there for that show, and the House of Blues All Stars were there, and I had this pass, and I was in the shell. I was soaking all of it in. It was a blast, and then being able to go up to the DJs who know that you're there for the station, and they pretty much will do anything that you ask them to do as long as it doesn't make them look bad. It's fabulous. It really is.
All right, now give me one more story, cool story. We don't want to
Okay.
give them all away because we want folks to buy the book. I can't imagine it's very expensive because books are not that expensive these days. And there it is, beautiful. It looks cool. It feels good.
Thank you.
Great stocking stuffer, or more. Okay, give me one more teasy story.
I'll give you really one of my favorites, and it just involves so many different things that we all know and love. Basically, the story is about the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but it starts out at the Rat in Kenmore Square, doing photos for Kay Hanley and Letters to Cleo. And at one of their shows, it was a benefit. I met Dickie Barrett, and he saw me working. And again, I'm 34 at this point, maybe somewhere around there. I don't look like a young kid, so everybody assumes I'm like this veteran pro. It was still early in my career, and I was nervous every time I went out, but I had so much fun. So Dickie saw me, and he asked me if I could shoot a show for them. I said, absolutely. And now we're moving over to the Paradise. It was one of their hometown throwdowns, which they do yearly. But I had never met the band before, and quite frankly, I did not know their music at that time. It wasn't played on the stations that I was listening to. It was more contemporary. So I really didn't know what to expect. And I got over to the Paradise, which is always a great place to see a show and to shoot for me. I let in, I get my pass, and I walk backstage to go meet the band and check in the green room and see what's going on. I knock on the door, and they invite me in, and I open the door, and there are a bunch of guys in suits and their families, and there's kids there. And I'm trying to figure out if I went into the right door or not. And turns out it's a band, and it's a very family-friendly thing, but the suits really threw me. We weren't doing shots in there, so I kind of went back out front, and I'm waiting for the show to start. Again, no idea what they're playing. The club fills up. The band starts, and then all of a sudden, everybody pushes to the stage. I'm looking at the stage. I'm off to the left. I get a bunch of shots there, but it's not where I want it to be. I didn't like the angle, and I always like to move around. So I worked my way up the stairs at the Paradise, down the other side, and kind of pushed my way back into the crowd and wangled my way up to the front. The camera was a good way to, get people to move, and they really were kind of nice, and they let me get up there. And I start shooting, but I'm getting jostled. It's really hard to hold the camera steady. We're all going back and forth. It's a mostly male audience, and certainly up close. I get a few shots, and I realize I can't shoot from here anymore. I'm not steady enough. So I kind of show everybody around me that I want to go back, and they said, no, you can't go that way. And they pointed to the stage. And with that,
Who's they?
What's that?
Who's they pointing?
Just people around me that were kind of blocking and trying to give me some space to shoot. I told them I was only going to be there a few minutes. But when I tried to leave, they said no. And they pointed to the stage, and they lifted me up. About 6 people. They lifted me up straight as a rock, straight up towards the stage, put me down on the stage. And at this point, I certainly knew enough that unless somebody tells me to leave, I'm not leaving. Right, so at that point, I climbed up on one of the monitors, and I just started shooting. Dickie is dripping sweat. He's leaning out over the crowd. People are dancing. It was so much fun. Stayed up there for a couple of songs. and then made my way off stage.
So you have Dickie shots in the book.
I do.
Are there any of that moment in the book?
Oh, absolutely. There's a
Okay.
bunch of that one.
Okay.
That was lots of fun.
Okay. Well, I don't want to give everything away, Allan. Congratulations. Good. It's a big deal to write a book, and you did it. This is not just a pamphlet. It's an actual book, lots and lots of photos. And I think the most interesting thing about the whole thing is your personal story.
Thank you.
Final question.
Sure.
Randy Carter asks from Facebook, advice for an inspiring new photographer who wants to shoot bands. And some of this advice probably will extrapolate to an aspiring anything. What's your advice?
Set your goal and move towards it without letting people tell you that you can't. I was told so many times, specifically by a photo teacher, that I had no talent for shooting. Had I listened to him, I don't know where I'd be now. Find a young band. I always think that's a great place. A lot of people that shoot sports start with high school sports. Find a local band. Find somebody that you think has something, and just practice the art and get better at it. Because there are a lot of people with camera these days, and it's no easy feat to make that work for you, but it can be done.
Right. I guess my advice would be do the research and find out where the bands are playing and go. You got to show up. You got to be there, and you will make the relationships and just start taking the photos. And one thing that you did was you read a lot about how to get better, and I think that's pretty important too. So maybe subscribing to photography magazines is helpful, or going on YouTube tutorials on.
Sure.
I'm sure if you Google YouTube tutorial shooting, taking photos of bands or flash or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all there.
Allan Dines, thank you very much. ALLAN. When you go to buy the book, and you should get on it right away. You know, there's a supply chain problem. You want to get your book soon. Order it soon.
I've got them here, and you can order them through the website as well. Allan Dines Photography.
So you have them there, meaning
I've got physical copies. You want one? You want two?
So how do people get those? How do people get those copies? Is there a shortcut?
Those you get signed. You just go to my website, Allan Dines Photography. It's right on the homepage.
Okay, ALLANDINES Photography.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Allan. Thanks a lot, and congratulations to you. And say hi to Jordan and everybody that you know and I know together.
Bradley, thanks for your time.
Oh God, yeah. You take care, brother. Bye. We're still alive, so don't say anything crazy.